Hello, my name is Christina Pierce. I am 38 years old. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I am the mother to Imogen, who is 9 years old, and Skylar, who is 5. My daughter is creative, very intuitive, as described, of having an old soul and a very high understanding of what's going on with her friends and how to make them feel better. My son Skylar is incredibly active, constantly moving, is very good with his hands and very athletic, and is the first to want to hug a friend if they are hurt or upset. Yesterday, on January 4th, 2024, I lost custody of both of my children. A judge in Suffolk County Probate ordered that I could not even see them in person. I cannot hug them. I cannot kiss them. I cannot do anything with them in person. I have owned 2 businesses. I'm a marketing executive. My former boss is one of the best professionals I've ever worked with, and also a friend of mine. And I live in Fort Point in Boston. I live in a 2,000 square foot apartment building, to which we have friends in the building. My children have friends that also live in the building. And for fun, we like to ski. My daughter loves to sing and do fencing. Both of my kids are great runners. I ran the Boston Marathon in April of this year, or last year, I guess, April of 2023. And both of my kids are able to run 5Ks, including my 5-year-old. He's described as the fastest person in his school. Both of my children go to private school. I've never been arrested. I have no history with illegal drugs. Despite having a glass of wine with a friend or enjoying a brewery, I don't drink heavily. And I can't see my kids. I will be allowed to do Zoom calls with my children 3 days a week at 7:30 p.m. And after my daughter had a mental health breakdown, witnessed by a close family friend and another parent, she said she didn't want to be alive. She said she had been hit. And I followed the advice of her pediatrician and called a mental health crisis line. She had a mental health evaluation in the home by a crisis counselor on December 11th. And on December 11th, I sought a restraining order due to what she shared with the crisis counselor. I was not awarded the restraining order, but I was given full custody of the children. And on December 14th, I was directed to go to the police department to file a police report for where the incident occurred, to have it on record and to have it in court when we were due back on December 18th. The police detective that I spoke to, who really did a great job and seemed really nice, his name was Detective Chris Ducharme, and I really appreciate him even though things didn't work out for me. He insisted that, or he told me that his advice was that I needed a restraining order and that my children were being hurt and needed protection. I told him I would get in trouble from probate court, and he said that's not how it works. That's not what the law is like. This is a different district. This is criminal. I was at the police station for 2 hours. I was very emotional, having spoken to the Department of Child and Family earlier that day and learning that there would be an investigation for 2 types of abuse. And I know that in court that doesn't look good for the mothers. And I was terrified. Anyway, he told me his advice after 2 hours, or I should say an hour and 45 minutes, was to get a restraining order, which I said, if that's your advice, I will not go against your advice. And he called a judge who issued a restraining order, and their father was served. had to show up in court the next day in district court, to which we asked to have the case transferred to Suffolk County. I was afraid I would get in trouble. They said no, that they wanted to hear the case directly, and we agreed to continue the restraining order to December 20th. On December 18th, I went into court and I testified for 7 hours. I was accused of forum shopping, which means that the judge accused me that I didn't like her ruling. So I went to a different court for a better answer, despite the fact that the judge had suspended custody and given me the children. Temporarily, but well, things could get sorted out. I was actually very thankful, based on my history with that judge and the judge's history of my case, that she had done that to protect my kids. My daughter wouldn't even go to school in the morning of the 11th unless I promised her I would pick her up, and had to meet with the guidance counselor to then still try to force her way not to go into school. After that, everything settled down, and she was able to go to school without problems. On the 18th, after I testified for 7 hours, our probate judge said that if we didn't agree to a stipulation in 10 minutes, DCF would be called and our children would be going into foster care. I never heard anything like that. My attorney said she'd never heard anything like that. I didn't want my kids to be put in foster care. Even with any problems about their other home, they still have 2 homes. Nothing meets the threshold of foster care. I signed it. I didn't know what else to do. The next day, my daughter had an interview with the district attorney due to the nature of some of the concerns. She was too traumatized to interview, and the district attorney told me that if she couldn't interview in a child-friendly environment without her mother present, that it probably wouldn't be a good idea, because if she did say something, she would have to go through a long trial process and testify alone in court. My daughter's 9. Which obviously no one wants her to do. The detective was there. DCF was on Zoom, and everybody was horrified to hear what happened the day before. The district attorney pulled up the order and said that she had never seen anything like it. They apologized to me and said that I had done everything right, followed the guidance of the pediatrician, sought the emergency counselor that assessed my daughter. I didn't do anything else from there besides try to protect my children with a restraining order. Also on the 18th, my children were removed from the restraining order that Concord had issued. I didn't realize you could do that, and I was told in Concord that that wasn't possible, but the probate judge removed the children from the restraining order. After that, I had signed an agreement when I was distressed that the children would go out of state for 7 days. They got diagnosed with RSV and were very upset and scared to go. My daughter had told the crisis counselor, or the crisis counselor had told me that my daughter told her that when she when she told her that she had been hit, she was really afraid that if her father found out, she would be hit more, and that she would communicate that she was afraid of retaliation. My aunt was one of the supervisors. She's a doctorate in psychology, and said that to send 2 children who were traumatized, crying, fighting to not go, sick with RSV, it would be unconscionable to have 2 third parties try to exchange them on Christmas Eve. So I reached out to their father. I said that they would be staying here. I kept him posted of the illness and said that we should talk to figure out a plan so that we can have things be healthy with the kids. After that, I didn't hear from him at all. I went into court. Actually, I filed an appeal once I had time to think about what had happened on the 18th. And the threat of foster care, which confused everyone. After that, we had to go back into court on January 2nd. And the case had been taken off the docket. The judge wasn't there, and there was no guidance of what was supposed to happen then. He said that he had custody of the kids now. I said that I had filed an appeal and that there were concerns for the children's safety. I went down to try to file a motion for temporary custody and was told I couldn't. I finally got in to see Judge Dunn in Suffolk County, who scheduled an emergency motion for temporary custody on January 4th. That was yesterday. I filed an affidavit, a 12-page affidavit of everything that had happened. I included 27 exhibits, photographs of my children's, our children's injuries. If you say my children, you say that so naturally as a parent, they're my babies. That doesn't mean they're not their fathers, but that looks really bad in court. You can't say my children, because if you say that as a mother, that means they're not his, and that's not what I mean. They're my babies. They're always my babies. They'll be my babies when they're 40 years old. They were my babies when I was still with their father. I brought in photographs of their injuries, police reports I have the surveillance photos of when my son was injured in our lobby, photographs, doctor's reports, everything, 27 exhibits of evidence. And after, the judge said that I couldn't see my kids anymore and that she would call both schools to make sure I couldn't pick them up. She wrote a document saying that I had tried to get a restraining order on September 28th when my son was injured, and that it was denied. I have a copy of the approved restraining order issued by Judge Dunn when their father was served. All I know is that my daughter said she didn't want to be alive. She's had a hard time lately, and the pediatrician told me I should call a mental health line, and I did. The other mother that was here promised her and said that it's important to tell the truth so we can help keep you safe. What's my daughter going to think now that she can't even see her mother, except for on a Zoom call 3 times a week? I didn't even get to say goodbye. This is the first day after I lost custody of my children in Suffolk Probate Court. I'm not perfect, but I'm a good mother, and my children love me, and I love them so much.